Thank you. So, do we need to know this for the test? Can you tell us how we should study for the exam? Will there be a study guide? Is there something we can do to better prepare? These questions are asked by thousands of students and cursed by hundreds of faculty every single semester. But it also represents really the sort of tug of war that educators and students face. On one side, we have students who are understandably wanting to know and understand what it is they need to do in order to be successful. On the other side of that rope are educators who are ultimately trying to encourage that intellectual autonomy. For me, this also raises some additional questions and challenges. It really is a tension between what I describe as professional students and professional learners. See, as educators, we hope to reward and support professional learners. The educational system, however, ultimately rewards and supports professional students. And so, what is the difference? Well, a professional student is going to be incredibly uh, content driven. They're going to be focused on completing the task, whatever that is. They want to get to the product basically as fast as possible because that's what they're going to be evaluated on. Additionally, they may be often afraid to make mistakes, right? There's a real identity with not wanting to be wrong for fear of what that might say about us. Additionally, professional students work until they get the problem right, and then they typically stop there. It's about memorizing for the sake of recognizing uh, uh, answers on a test, or maybe cramming really strongly right before the test so that they can perform well. So there is, again, sort of this real tension and this need to have well defined problems. Because after all, information should make sense. It's a very sort of black and white thing. Now, before moving on to talking about professional learners, I want to really emphasize that all of us in this room, at one point or another, have embraced that professional student role and have embraced that professional learner role. This isn't a some people are one way, some people are the other. In fact, I would argue that most of us during undergrad and maybe certain in high school and maybe even beyond really sort of leaned in to that professional student role. After all, that's how we were to get ahead. We were to get ahead by performing well, getting good grades, because good grades meant we would be able to go on to graduate school, and that was sort of the goal. However, this is obviously sometimes problematic because what the world really demands are professional learners, people who are less focused on the product, but understand that learning is a process. The process is where we make the mistakes and learn. The process is how we grow and get better. We learn from our mistakes. We have a growth mindset. We don't just work until we get the problem correct. We work until we don't get the problem wrong ever. We're okay with ambiguity. We're okay with ill-defined problems because we understand that there's gray there. It's not always a black and white issue. So there is sort of this struggle. Now, if this were the end of the conversation, you'd leave here with some new key terms about, professional students and professional learners. But this is not the end of the conversation. Starting in the late 2000s, early 2010s, we started to incorporate, when I say we, sort of collective we in the world, started to incorporate or encourage the use of technology in class, specifically personal laptops. And this grew and became very normalized where now it's expected within the classroom. And perhaps in our haste or in our desire to implement this technology and not kind of be left out, we just assumed that this technology was going to result in making us smarter and making the classroom experience better. And we never really took the time to think about the unintended consequences of rushing this. And ultimately, two major things appear. Number one, technology, especially in the classroom, offers digital escapism. We all know this. We see it every day. We're tethered to our phones. Some of us can't get off of them, right? We have literally the world at our fingertips in our pockets or in front of us as a computer. It's, in my opinion, a 21st century compulsion, right? We are addicted to technology. And so we then shouldn't be surprised if in the classroom that technology offers that escapism, which splits our attention, student or otherwise. Additionally, we've always believed in this idea that technology was going to make us smarter. I would argue it doesn't. It simply amplifies who we already are. So if we're a professional student, it doesn't necessarily make us smarter, it makes us a more efficient professional student. It helps us get to that product quicker. If we're a professional learner, well, then maybe we look at how technology can help us learn and understand nuance better. The point is, technology isn't making us smarter. It's making an amplified, exaggerated version of who we already are. Now, when you think about technology in the classroom, especially now, I mean, technology, obviously, it can create PowerPoints, it can create flashcards, you can have a screen reader that creates that solves problems for you in real time. It does all of these things. And somehow along the way, we've conflated this idea of having these things as learning. But technology cannot learn for us. So we can have all the bells and whistles, but if we're not willing to invest in that learning, we then have a very sort of superficial understanding of things. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because Generation Z is the first generation to perform poorer on a host of cognitive skills compared to the generation before. I'm going to say that again. They are the first generation to perform worse than the previous generation on a host of cognitive skills. And what it is most associated with, and to be clear, this is not simply in the US, this is international. What it's most associated with or correlated with through multiple studies, meta-analyses, etc., is screen time in the classroom. The greater the screen time, the more screen time in the classroom, the poorer the outcomes. And again, that's across a host of a variety of different cognitive skills. And so where does that really leave us? It leaves us with people who are reinforced to skim, who are reinforced to have their attention split, who we then wonder, why aren't they getting the material? Well, they're not flexing or exercising those cognitive muscles, right? Because their attention is elsewhere. And so we are essentially creating the problem inadvertently. Now, I don't have a magic wand. I don't have all the answers or solutions. What I really only have is 15, 16 years of teaching in the undergraduate space. And I want to share with you some things that I feel has worked, and I think students would agree that has worked in the classroom. But by no means is this the solution to what is a complex problem. Complex problems don't have simple solutions, so keep that in mind. First, and probably not unexpected, limit technology in the classroom. Do the exact opposite of what we were told we were supposed to do a decade and a half ago. For 15 years, I've had a no technology policy in my courses. Whether that is laptops, cell phones, tablets, anytime there's a lecture or class discussion, that's to be put away. I'm old school style. Students, if they want to take notes, fantastic. They're breaking out the paper and pen. Or they're printing out the notes that I've supplied to them and then kind of working from there. But surprisingly, or maybe not surprising, I've had wonderful feedback with respect to that. The very things that we were worried about, attention, students are coming back saying, I've had fantastic, I really enjoy the course, it's engaging. I realize I'm focused more on the material. So limiting technology. That said, we can't just limit technology and think that that is going to be the silver bullet. After all, faculty and educators really have to invest as well, right? We can't just tell students, put away your laptops, and somehow magically they're going to be more engaged. We have to hold up our end of the bargain. So what I also recommend is facilitating dialectic conversations. These are yes and conversations. So much of what we do in the social sciences, particularly, but in public health, is gray. Yet, a lot of the conversations and discussions we have in class are pretty transactional, right? And so, what we need to do is have those nuanced conversations. I teach an undergraduate research methods class, and some of the topics I talk about are the dangers of demographic variables in aggregate data analysis, or talk about why every assessment you've ever taken, social science wise or exam wise, is not necessarily a great representation of your ability. And lastly, we talk a lot about why humans are dumb. Frankly, why are we so bad at processing and understanding research? What are the human nature aspects that we fall victim to? There's nothing to do with intelligence, but has to do with our fallibility. Next, encourage mistakes. This sounds incredibly difficult, perhaps, because again, we have reinforced and trained generations of people that mistakes are bad, that you have to downplay those. The reality of the situation is mistakes are our greatest teacher. That's where we learn. That's where we grow. And so if we don't encourage mistakes, we stifle that growth. So within my courses in use research methods again, I'll have worksheets that are purposefully, as I tell the students, hard. They're purposely a little harder than what I'm expecting them to know because I want them to struggle. And I know when students first hear that, there's teachers saying, oh, I want you to struggle. They're a little taken aback by that. But the reality is, if you create an environment where struggling is the norm, and you recognize that it fosters a growth mindset, that's the goal. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, be relational, not transactional. Education, learning is a human endeavor, and we can't simply go through the motions. We have to be relational. We have to not only relate to the material, but relate to the students and relate to the fact that we're kind of all in this together. And learning is best when we're relational. In conclusion, I hope these words don't come across as somehow I'm anti-technology or somehow I think that undergraduate students aren't great students. They absolutely are. They destroy anything I would be able to do when I was their age. But what I really hope you do kind of take away from this is that learning again is a human endeavor. And while technology may be evolving rapidly, human nature doesn't. We're still the same old humans that we've been for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so we have to recognize that perhaps mismatch between technology and learning. Thank you.